Let's talk about hypersonic flight. We're not just talking about breaking the sound barrier, we're talking about absolutely shattering it, traveling at speeds so fast you could get from New York to London in less than an hour. Now, this isn't some far off science fiction, but it is one of the toughest engineering problems humanity has ever tried to solve. And the key? Well, the key is a totally revolutionary kind of engine. Just think about that question for a second. How do you fly at 5,000 miles an hour? At those speeds, the air itself stops being something you fly through and starts being something you have to fight. It's an obstacle of incredible force and heat. Your typical jet engine? It just can't take it. The fan blades would literally melt and tear themselves apart. So you need something completely different. And the answer looks a little something like this. What you're seeing is the NASA X-51A. This thing flew at nearly Mach 10. That's almost 7,000 miles an hour. And it did it with an engine that has, get this, 0 moving parts. It's called a scramjet. To really get why the scramjet is such a game changer, you have to look back a bit. After we broke the sound barrier way back in 1947, everyone thought hypersonic flight was right around the corner. But it wasn't. For decades, the top speeds for most planes have been kind of stuck, hovering between Mach 1 and Mach 3. To get past that wall, you needed a whole new way of thinking about engines. So let's dive into the engine itself. At its core, the idea behind a scramjet is actually ridiculously simple. It's basically just a very, very carefully shaped tube that's open on both ends. And the name, Scramjet, it stands for Supersonic Combustion Ramjet, and that name tells you everything you need to know. And this slide just says it all, doesn't it? On the left, you've got your traditional turbojet engine. It's full of all these complex spinning parts, compressors, turbines, you name it. And then on the right, you have a scramjet. No fans, no turbines, nothing moves. It's this incredible simplicity that lets it work at speeds that would completely destroy a normal engine. So how in the world does it work with no moving parts? Well, it cleverly uses the vehicle's own insane speed against itself. The air is literally rammed into the engine's intake at such a high velocity that it compresses itself. No need for a mechanical compressor. But the real magic and what makes it different from its predecessor, the ramjet, is that the air never slows down below the speed of sound. The combustion happens at supersonic speeds. And this diagram just lays it all out beautifully. So first, you have the inlet. The shape of the vehicle's nose and the engine intake work together to force that incoming supersonic air to compress and get super hot. Second, the combustor. Fuel gets injected into this incredibly fast hot air and, somehow, ignites. And finally, the nozzle. All those expanding hot gases from the combustion get blasted out the back, creating a massive amount of thrust. That's it. Compression, combustion, expansion, all happening inside a simple tube. Okay, so if the idea is so elegant and simple, you're probably asking yourself, well, why aren't these things everywhere? And that's because, in this case, simple is definitely not the same thing as easy. In fact, getting a scramjet to actually work is one of the most extreme engineering challenges we have ever faced. So here's the first absolutely mind-bending problem. A scramjet can't start from a dead stop. It actually produces 0 thrust at low speeds. You have to get the thing going to about Mach 5. That's 5 times the speed of sound before you can even turn it on. That means every single scramjet vehicle needs a whole other engine, usually a rocket, just to get it up to its starting speed. And once you do hit Mach 5, believe me, the challenges are just getting started. The friction with the atmosphere creates unbelievable heat. And inside the engine, that air is screaming through so fast that the fuel has just a few milliseconds to get injected, mix with the air, ignite, and burn completely. The classic way to describe it is perfect. It's like trying to light a match and keep it lit in the middle of a hurricane. Beating these challenges has been the work of decades. Seriously. The basic idea has been around since the 1950s, but going from theory on a blackboard to an actual flying piece of hardware has been a very long, very slow, and very expensive journey. The big breakthroughs have been few and far between. The first successful flight test was actually a joint US-Soviet program way back in 1991. Then, in 2004, a huge moment. NASA's X-43A made history, hitting that record of Mach 9.6. A massive leap forward happened in 2013 with the X-51A Waverider, which managed to stay lit, flying under scramjet power for over 3 minutes. And more recently, you're starting to see military programs showing that this tech is finally getting mature enough for the real world. And part of the reason progress has felt so slow is because it's just insanely difficult to test these things. You can't just bolt a scramjet to a stand in a regular test cell. You need these highly specialized, incredibly expensive hypersonic wind tunnels to even begin to simulate the flight conditions. A lot of the time, the only real way to test a design is to build it, strap it to a rocket, fly it, and know that the test often ends with your multi-million-dollar vehicle being destroyed.
So, after all this time, all this money, and all this effort, where is this technology actually going? What's the big payoff for cracking the scramjet problem? Well, the answer is that scramjets can do things that no other engine can.
This chart here really tells the whole story. At the lower speeds, your classic turbojets are king. They're super efficient. Then ramjets take over in that low supersonic range. But look what happens when you push past Mach 5 or 6. They just run out of steam. But that purple zone way out on the right, that is the scramjet's kingdom. It's the only air-breathing engine we have that can actually work efficiently at true hypersonic speeds. Okay, so the crucial point is how it stacks up against a rocket. A rocket is powerful, no doubt, but it has to carry all of its own heavy oxygen with it. A scramjet just breathes the air from the atmosphere, which makes it way, way more efficient. We measure that efficiency with something called specific impulse. You can just think of it like gas mileage for an engine. The higher the number, the better. And scramjets are off the charts. But there's always a trade-off, right? Rockets produce enormous power for how little they weigh. Scramjets, not so much. They're amazing, efficient cruisers, but they are not powerful lifters. So what does this unique ability unlock? Well, some pretty incredible things. For us, regular folks, it could one day mean flying anywhere on the planet in less than 90 minutes. For getting to space, a scramjet could be the first stage of a launch vehicle, slashing the amount of oxidizer you need to haul to orbit. And of course, it's the key technology for a new generation of hypersonic weapons and spy planes. And this quote right here, this just nails the entire reason we're doing this. The engine itself is heavy, sure, adding maybe 10% to the vehicle's mass. But by not having to carry all that liquid oxygen, you could save 30% of the total mass of the vehicle. It's a huge net win. That fundamental trade-off is the whole game. It's why we're pursuing this incredibly difficult tech. So we're left with this amazing contrast. An engine with no moving parts. Maybe the simplest engine concept you can imagine. Yet it has to operate in one of the most violent and complex environments possible. We're definitely making progress, but the challenges are still just immense. And the big question remains, is this technology finally going to deliver on its world-changing promise? Or is it a dream that will always be just a little bit out of reach?